Hello and welcome to the Ease of Business podcast. I am Anne Tipton here today with my co-host Celeste Hartwell, and welcome to the very first episode. Yay!
So excited. So this podcast has kind of been in my space for a couple years. Well, I should say a year and a half. And how this came about was I had this idea in the summer of 2019 of doing like a conscious book club type deal. And I tried to run that through Meetup and it didn't necessarily go. But then, I let that go. I released that. And all of a sudden, I had this idea in quarantine this year of what about this becoming a podcast? And what if it's about the books that like changed our lives and businesses? And I asked my amazing friend Anne here if she would be so brave as to join me with this. And I'm so excited. So Anne, tell me about what you're excited about with this podcast.
Well, I think what you meant to say is that you knew that I was nerdy enough to participate, which is absolutely true. Celeste and I both are such devout book readers. It's one of those things that has provided so much insight and so much, just like perspective on the issues that we're going through in our business or where we want to take our businesses. And there's a lot to dissect in a lot of these books. And I think, there's so much to somebody taking a decade of what they've learned and consolidating it into one 300-page book that just tells you all the things. And so I think the ability to not only digest those things together but to share what it is we got from them is just so exciting. So I'm so glad to be here, and I'm so glad that you asked me to participate.
I'm so excited that you participated. And the other thing that we really got excited about this particular podcast was the name, the Ease of Business, because Anne and I have both, we'll tell you a little bit more about us a little bit later on, but we both have worked in this hustle and grinds mentality for a very long time. And what we learned was we can actually jumpstart ourselves in business and we can really move forward faster by taking the nuggets that other people have shared and all of that. And we really were like, business can be easy, life can be easy. How about we just really focus in on that? So
yeah, well, and I think we've both kind of taken that hustle and grind corporate mentality that we earned, from our various careers, and have been able to transform that because of the books that we've read. Right. And so the hope is that we can share what we've learned with you, and do that through this platform. So, yay.
Yes, I love it. So I will tell you a little bit about who I am, and then we'll move into who Anne is, and then what our real gain for. Before we move on to that, what our real wish for is that our if I could speak correctly, our plan is that this is a live podcast on our Facebook page the first Tuesday of every single month at 7 p.m. Eastern. And so our real goal here is that this becomes like an interactive book club, that we read a book, that we talk about the book live, that you can comment in the section. You can join our Facebook group where we'll have more interaction, and really being able to share these nuggets of wisdom with you as well as ourselves. So, and having this conversation and really having more people. And so we're doing it through this platform, Be Live, where I think Anne can talk a little bit more about that, but it's really like a much more interactive platform so that we can have a conversation. That's what we're really excited about.
Yeah. So regardless of how you're going to consume this content, because we are going to post this kind of all over the place. So we'll be on Facebook here, which is where we're streaming live now, but we're also going to have this downloaded as a podcast. So if you don't get a chance to catch us live, we do hope that you take the opportunity to get that download. And while you're driving or doing whatever you're doing, take a listen that way. Will also be published on YouTube. So various ways to interact, various ways to come and play. But if you are able to catch us live, we would love that. And one of the cool things about using Be Live as our hosting service is that we can actually highlight your comments as you're making them. So if somebody makes an interesting point, or, we want to converse about something that somebody said, we can actually pull that up on the screen, which is just kind of, unique and interesting and fun. So happy to be here on this platform. And if you can't catch us live, there's going to be plenty of other ways to digest the same information.
I love it. And what just came up for me too, Anne, in this like conversation about like how people can consume the content, which I super appreciate you reminding, speaking to that, because I had slipped my mind a little bit. But the other thing is that if you want to interact, you as a viewer, listener, consumer of this, if you want to interact and you're not able to make it live on the first Tuesday of every month at 7 p.m. Eastern, you're always welcome to join our Facebook group, the Ease of Business podcast, and drop a question. Like, we'll have a comment thread, right? So if you want to still like hear your question answered or have a comment that you really want to share, some big insight that you got out of the book that month, we'd love to have that. That is definitely, we want to showcase you. We want to invite you into doing that. So
absolutely. We want this to be a social experience. So come play with us however suits you best. And even if you catch, the replay later because you can't make it live, come into the group and join the conversation there. So we'll be there hanging out, ready to chat with you.
Love it. All right. So I guess I'll move on to who is Celeste Hartwell. That's me. My name is Celeste Hartwell. My company is called Divine Feminine Leaders. And what I really focus on is helping female entrepreneurs heal their relationship with money. Like so often us as women, we have this battered, bruised, almost abusive boyfriend type relationship with money. And I deem a lot of that towards the fact that women as a whole are still so relatively new in the work environment. It hasn't been that long, relatively speaking, that we've been earning wages and working outside the home. And what we need to learn is that we are the ones who assign value to ourselves. And so being able to shift that instead of having money be this external thing, but like this value being internal, so that you can really shine and show up in a very, very profound way. So I have two other podcasts. One is called Divine Feminine Leaders Podcast, and the other is called Divine Silence. Divine Feminine Leaders is basically interviewing female entrepreneurs who, it's a female view of entrepreneurship for women by women is the official tagline, but I always say it's women who make a shit ton of money and are, doing so unapologetically, breaking all the rules, because that's what I really believe in. Like we mentioned before, you don't really have to do the hustle and grind. It can be really easy. And then Divine Silence is my personal journey and meditation, silent meditation retreats. So that's a little bit about me. Anne, who are you? What do you want to?
Well, before we get there, I think it's interesting to say that money is kind of how we met. And so let's chat a little bit about that before we get into me, because I think the story of how we met is very interesting and very divinely guided, if I do say so myself. So how did we meet, Celeste?
So Anne and I met, my version of the story, I guess I'll say, we were going to a money event for women entrepreneurs in Connecticut. Or was it Atlanta?
It was Atlanta.
It was Atlanta. Okay. We went to a couple different places together. But the first time when we first met, all my friends thought I was crazy because I signed up to have random roommates, as did Anne. And we roomed with 3 other women. So there were 4 women in the room. And I was like, I grew up with sisters. Anne has a sister. We're used to sharing beds with other women platonically. It's not a big deal. And so we decided to kind of bunk up, all 4 of us in Atlanta, having sight unseen, never really met each other, never really had a conversation. And it was an amazing experience. It was kind of like a slumber party. We also learned that 4 people was too much for both of us in the same room. It was a lot of energy. We both kind of go in and out of being introverted. So there's definitely, that was a little bit too much, but it was so much fun and so grateful to have met Anne through that. It was very serendipitous. So what's your version of it?
Well, pretty much that. I mean, I'm sure that my older, wiser self will look at that experience and go, what were you thinking? Like bunking up with these strangers. But like you said, kind of, it was people of like mind and like spirit. And it was just, The trip to Atlanta was expensive. The transportation in Atlanta is expensive. The hotel room was expensive. And we wanted to stay in the hotel where the event was happening, which I think is super important, especially for these like super long and intensive programs. You know, as an introvert, being able to just walk right up to my hotel room and not have to deal with like finding an Uber or getting a cab or whatever, finding the subway, Lord help me, if in a strange city. So yeah, it was a priority for both of us to be in the hotel. And yeah, we've made lifelong friends from that. So super cool. So yeah, a little bit about me. So my name is Anne Tipton. I am a financial analyst by trade, and I have an online business called Nan Loves Food. I am doing a YouTube channel that's just getting started. Just started at the beginning or the end of 2020. So just gearing up with that, and it's so much fun. And food is a passion of mine. I used to be a chef, so I was a chef working in restaurants for over a decade, and then had an opportunity for a company that offered me a job to pay for my MBA, and so I had to take that and leave the world of restaurants. So I've had kind of a weird career, but I mean, who hasn't? So doing this business thing, and it's been so enlightening, and I'm taking all of the skills and all of I've been a non-professional studier of internet marketing for a very, very long time, like pretty much since the beginning of the internet, because I'm old, and really have taken that and distilled a lot of that knowledge. And as it's grown and evolved for everybody, right? Because the internet has grown and changed so much since it was a baby. And really applying those principles to what I'm doing on the internet these days. So super excited to be here, super excited to have this fun place to come and play and learn more, because that's definitely one of the fundamental values that I have is education and learning. And so reading books feeds right into that.
I love that. And I want to hear a little bit more about why your YouTube channel is called Nan Loves Food.
Yes. So my name is Anne, and I have two little nephews. My oldest nephew could not pronounce Anne, specifically Aunt Anne. So it became Nan. And so when he started calling me Nan, that kind of has stuck. And so now I insist that everyone in my family call me Nan, whether they want to or not, because it is a point of pride. Like I am a Nan.
Yeah.
And I'm one of a kind. And I think that's very special. So it is Nan Loves Food because Nan does, in fact, love food.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that. And I really resonate. I mean, Anne and I are really good friends and we've known each other for a couple of years now. And so I just always love hearing about your story through like corporate and, you know, in food and then corporate and then this internet marketing, like love affair, I want to say, that you've had for so long. And by the way, you're younger than I am, so I don't really think you get to say you're old. But yeah, it's interesting, and I love the fact that what I really hope to gain out of this podcast, one of the things that I personally really hope to gain is like helping people understand that no matter where life has taken you, I mean, I was in corporate for 18 years myself as a utilities analyst. And what that means is that I budgeted electricity and gas, natural gas. Really fun stuff, you know, like really fun. And it worked. It was good for a long time. And I'm so grateful to have learned those skills. And I'm sure you are as well, Anne, like with all of your stuff. And I think that was one of the biggest things of this particular podcast for me is like, let's showcase, like, you can take all of the skill set that you've learned up until this point in your life and utilize it in whatever facet that looks like going forward, whatever is exciting you in this moment. And it can be easy. We can learn from books. We can learn from other people and all of that. And then just having really fun conversations around it. So, yeah.
Absolutely. And one of the channels that I've had in the past that I hope to revive here soon is called Creatively Rich. And it is all about that concept of like, how can you take your passions and turn them into something that actually generates revenue that supports your lifestyle and supports your hobbies and supports the things that make you happiest. And so over on that channel in 2021, there will be quite a few episodes about unraveling how we can actually turn the things that we love most into monetized situations. And Celeste, I haven't actually told you this yet, but one of the things that I'm working on and is literally on its way to my home is I'm having merch for my teeny tiny little YouTube channel. So soon you will be able to purchase a Nan Loves Food apron. And it's 100% passive for me. But the business of that is so fascinating to me, right? That picking apart and dissecting, okay, and like finding the company that does the fulfillment and they do development, but I get to do the design and like it's licensed with my stuff. And it's so, so fun. And so the more you can do to create those kind of passive income things, if you can't tell by the tone of my voice, that really lights my fire. I love that stuff. Absolutely love it. So.
No, and I think that that's always, I mean, I think that for many people who go into business for themselves, the entrepreneurial types, that is what gets people really excited. Like, how can I do less and earn more? How can I utilize my talents, my skills, do something one time, and then allow that to, reap benefits in the future, right? Like, who doesn't want that, right? Like, press a button, it's done. The website's out there. It's working. Like,
it's for sale.
Yeah. I love that. Congratulations on your merchandise, by the way. I'm like, I'm going to have to buy an apron.
I mean, I'm just starting with an apron to begin with, but I think that that's so fun. And it's going to have the little heart with the fork logo that I've done. And it's so fun. So I'm very excited about that.
So you're going to have to announce when they're ready for purchase, and you're going to have to give us a website because I am going to be number one buying it. But I love it.
So fun. So are you ready to make the big announcement of what book we want to do?
I am. I feel like I've been talking a whole lot. So how about you make the announcement and I'll just be the Vanna White of it.
Well, I will say that this is one of the first books that I really dug into when it comes to self-development. Now, being a financial analyst, I've read a lot of books about money. I read a lot of books about finance and investing and like spreadsheety kind of things, but the mental stuff was not something I really tapped into until several years later in my business education. And this was one of the most impactful books that I have ever read in my life. And it's called The Big Leap by Gay Hendricks. It talks about how we can basically self-sabotage the things that we want and our feelings of happiness and fulfillment because our monkey brains are just not made to be happy. So I think it's a fascinating look. Gay Hendricks is absolutely brilliant. I've consumed some of his other content in addition to this book, and he's just a brilliant man. So I'm super excited that this is going to be our very first book that we're going to discuss. Do you have anything else you want to say about the book?
I mean, I will say that, yes, I think this was actually maybe you recommended this book to me.
I recommend a lot of books.
We recommend a lot of books to each other, to be fair, which we'll be talking about. But this one in particular, I feel like this one had landed in my space a few times before I finally listened to the thunk from the universe of like, you need to listen, you need to read this. And when I did, it was really amazing and life-changing. And I know, Anne, you say that this is the book that like really changed your life in such a profound way. And that is why we chose it first, because it is such a powerful book about mindset and about, when you say the monkey mind is, always, it doesn't want us to be happy, and it's so programmed. And I say, like, that's part of the work that I do with people too, is like moving that mindset, shifting those belief systems, because it's not just like the human brain, but it's also culture and society and all of these different belief systems of like, well, I'm going to be noble if I'm unhappy, somehow it's right, it's better to be, you know, complaining about everything instead of actually like living a life that's really fulfilling.
Well, that's what we learned in middle school, right? That's what made us friends, is to bitch about how awful everything is, right? That's how you connect with people.
Right, which is unfortunate because there's such an easier way. Like there's just such a much more fun way, a much more progressive isn't the word, but happier. There's just a much more fulfilling way to live. And I find that this book really does give like some tangible, I don't have a good place to hold it unless it's right in front of my face. If you're watching, if you're listening, you're just hearing me talk about the book in my face. But yeah, I think it just gives us such good tangible things to think about, and the upper limit. And I don't want to spoil next month, but this is what we're going to be discussing on the first Tuesday, which is the 9th of February at 7 p.m. live on Facebook, right here on the business page, which is the Ease of Business podcast. So again, like we just really are excited to, if you've not listened to this book, you can listen on Audible, you can buy the physical copy. I think I have it in both places because I like to listen and then like really dive in, and I have little tags on it and I highlight things and all that stuff. But yeah, I think it's just a really good book to start this podcast with.
Yeah, I think it's exceptional. And obviously, I've got a lot to say about the book because we're going to do probably an entire hour on the book. So, like you, I will save some of my thoughts for later. But it will be in this format on this page at 7 o'clock. So, we will have kind of main bullet points across the screen like we've got now. And we would love to have you come and comment and listen and play along. So, if you do want to read the book, we will make sure to leave a link to it. Celeste and I are both big Audible people. I think for me, that's just the easiest way to digest books. I am an auditory learner, and so that really helps me. A tip, if you are an Audible user or an audiobook user of any kind, every application that I use to listen to audiobooks with has the ability to speed up the voice. And so usually I listen between 1.5 and 2.0, depending on the author and their cadence of reading, because it makes me nuts when people are slow readers. So I want to get through the material and learn it. So usually if I see that a book is, 10 hours long, I get through it in 5. And so that feels like a totally reasonable amount of time to get through. So a little tip, if you're not super familiar with the Audible platform, or any audiobooks, it doesn't have to be this big laborious thing to sit down and make time to open a book. Like that can feel like a lot, especially if you've got a million other things going, like a lot of us do, especially right now. So yeah, we'll definitely leave the link in all of the places, the YouTubes and the Facebooks and the podcasts. So you can get your hands on a copy of that.
And as a woman who multitasks fairly often, listening to the audiobook while I'm folding laundry or doing dishes makes things easier. It's part of the ease of business. It just makes things so much more efficient.
For sure. Or one of the things that Celeste and I have in common that is a not so admirable habit is that we are both lovers of the Candy Crush. So I will often do the audiobook and crush some candies while I'm listening to my audiobooks. So a little behind the scenes action there, but
to be honest, I had to take Candy Crush off my phone because I no longer had any type of self-control with it. So I'm playing another game that I get bored of faster. So
I have it on a tablet that is just for that use. It is not on my phone. So I feel you. We can have the games, but we have to.
Yeah, there needed to be limits.
Yes, I feel that for sure.
Nice. Well, yeah, I think, or when you're driving, that's the other place. I love to listen to audiobooks. Maybe you're not driving right. Huh?
If you're going anywhere these days.
Yeah. Maybe you're not driving as much these days, but when I do drive, that's one of the things that I love to do. So lots of ways to digest if you feel like you don't have time. There's little pockets. So
for sure. And I also love to listen to them when I'm walking the dog. That's a huge time of getting outside, even though today it was a real feel of 26 degrees. Oh, Fahrenheit. Too cold, too cold. But we got out there and walked the dog, and I'll listen to audiobooks when I do that too. Get out in nature and breathe a little fresh air. So that's always nice.
I love it. I love it. So if you want to be part of the conversation, like I mentioned before, if you want to leave a comment or a question about the big leap, or just have more interaction and more conversation with Anne or myself, we would love to invite you to join the Ease of Business podcast Facebook group, where we will be doing a little bit more interaction. And otherwise, we would love to have you read the book with us, find the book, let us know if you have any questions, and we will see you next month on February 9th at 7 p.m. Eastern.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Bye.